Hey guys, thanks for watching my video today. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, next to the subscribe button, there is a notification bell that if you click on, you'll be notified every time I upload a video. So let's jump right in today and talk about the 5 awkward things that happened to me just when I moved over to the US, when I was new here. And I remember that my first plane ride ever was when I was moving from Kenya to the US. And it was my flight from Nairobi to Istanbul and then Istanbul to JFK. So let's talk about menus. This was quite an adjustment for me moving over here. I grew up in Kenya, and the menus when you go to a restaurant are usually on the wall. And it's about 5 to 10 things. And they are very clearly labeled. So it's like beef, chicken, goat, beans, rice. And so, you go to a restaurant and you be like, hey, give me rice and beans. And you're good. Very simple. The menus are very simple. And then I moved over to the US. And wow. This actually took me a while to get used to. So one of my first experiences with restaurants in America was a Cheesecake Factory. And my in-laws took me there. So, we go there. And then the waiter comes and asks what we're drinking. And everybody else says water. And so I say water too. And then he goes ahead and hands us the menu. And I kid you not, it's almost the size of the Bible. And that was intimidating at first, because I'm like, am I studying for an exam to order my food? So I start flipping the pages and I'm looking for the simplest thing, like, hey, remember I'm used to chicken, beef, like rice, straightforward, simple menus, like, okay, this is what I want. And then I'm looking at this menu and what I can see is Cajun jambalaya. And I'm like, chicken Alfredo. And I have no idea what anything on this menu is. And it's like, I start to sweat. And everybody's like, looks at their menu and they're ready to order. And then the waiter comes back and we're supposed to give what we want to order. And I have no idea. They give me a booklet for a menu. So I'm holding this menu, and to get out of this embarrassment, because I have no idea, I am overwhelmed, I decide to ask, so what would you recommend? And then they recommended Cajun jambalaya. And I said, Cajun jambalaya it is. Thank you. Are you serious? I'm used to like, boom, 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 boom. And then I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. So I got out of that one, but it took me quite a while to get adjusted to, you go to some restaurants and they have booklets when it comes to menu items and ordering stuff. And it took me a while to kind of get used to it. And and now I'm used to it. But before, that was awkward. So I grew up in Kenya and I grew up poor, really poor. And so food wasn't guaranteed every day. And so every time they served you with food, you had to finish all your food. Otherwise, if you left any food on your plate, that food would come to haunt you when you were hungry. Because that's when you'd be thinking, man, I didn't finish that food. As if that was going to help you when you're hungry then. But it's like, food left on the plate would come back and haunt you. And I'm serious. So I moved over here. And, so we went to the Cheesecake Factory and they brought the Cajun jambalaya. And the plate was humongous. It was big. And I'm used to, you gotta clean up your plate. And so, I keep eating. I'm so full. And, and I look at other people's plates and I realize some of them have food left on their plates. But I'm like, I gotta finish this food because, this is how I was raised. And so I clean up that huge bowl of Cajun jambalaya. And it takes me a while for anybody to tell me otherwise. And by this time, I was cleaning plates. It's like you invite me to your home, I'm like, clean your plate. And by the time I give it back to you, you don't even have to rinse it. Just dump it in the dishwasher and you're good. Yeah, until someone sat me down and told me, you do not have to finish your food. And that was a really foreign concept for me. And they told you, and they also told me that if you don't like the food, you don't have to eat it. And I'm like, it took me a while for me to realize that I'm living in a different culture. And in this culture, it's people eat as much as they can. And they don't have to finish the food. And that's the culture. The reason you don't finish the food on your plate is because A, they serve in big portions, like huge portions compared to back home. A lot of the food back home is organic and it's healthy, and a lot of food here is processed. And so if you're in the habit of cleaning out everything, unfortunately that might interfere with your six-pack goals. And and it might tip you over to the unhealthy side. So I learned that lesson 100 pounds later. So while we're still talking about food, let's talk about more food. I know. So this one kind of caught me unaware. And so I landed over here in the US, and I had friends here. And I had posted on my Facebook that, hey, I landed safely, blah, blah, blah. And so I get a Facebook chat. And this friend tells me, hey, are you available tomorrow for lunch? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I would love to have lunch with you. And so, I'm like, I'm excited because I'm going to have lunch with this friend of mine. And in my head, I'm thinking, how nice of them to invite me over for lunch, because in Kenya, if someone calls you, like if I call you and say, hey, let's go to lunch, that usually means I am paying for your lunch. I know. So this person Facebook messaged me and told me that they wanted to have lunch with me. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a really nice guy. He wants to buy me lunch. And so I show up the next day. So we're having a great lunch, great conversations, and everything is going good. And I'm like, wow, I'm so excited to be here. And then the waiter comes and he asks, are you together or are you doing separate checks? And my guy friend says, separate checks. And I'm like, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. I'm like, what? It's like, what's going on? In my head, I'm thinking, what? Like, dude, in my head, I'm like, dude, you invited me for lunch. It's like, what? Separate checks? Yeah. The fortunate thing was that I actually had some money with me and I was able to pay part of my bill. But that was the day I learned a hard lesson that when someone asks you for, if you want to hang out or for coffee or lunch, that doesn't usually mean they're paying for you. It usually means, come, let's hang out, and we can eat or drink, but make sure you have your checkbook with you. Yeah. Learned that one the hard way. This one is not really awkward. It's more of my naivety and ignorance. Because the thing is, if you don't know something, you will fall for anything. And this is true because We used to have a friend growing up that used to talk so much about flying as if he'd ever flown. And I came to realize years later that whatever he was telling us were made up stories. Because he would tell us that when the plane, takes off and is in the clouds, there's like airplane roads that the plane goes through. And that during the journey, sometimes the pilot lets people out, for like a bathroom break. Just like when you go for long distances, when you're traveling on buses, sometimes they pull off, on a stop area, and you get to go to a rest stop. So this friend was telling us that the pilot would let people off the plane to, for a bathroom break in the middle of the flight. And we were buying this and chewing this like nothing. I mean, I was believing that because I didn't know otherwise. And so for the longest time, I believed that there's like airplane roads up there. And like actually people stop for bathroom breaks. I know. So the other thing that they talked about was that America was the land of milk and honey. And you just peg it on my naivety or ignorance. But in my head, when I got on the plane from Istanbul and I was flying over to the US, my first time in the US, flying into JFK, in my head, I was thinking, I was kind of waiting to see this land that flows with milk and honey. I kid you not. Like that would have been an expectation that if I landed in the US and there was actually milk and honey, it wouldn't have surprised me. Because at the back of my head, someone had said that. And it was like, they talked about America as the land of milk and honey. And then, boom, we land at JFK. And I'm like looking for milk and honey. And yes, I did not find it. So, America is a land of milk and honey? That's what they were saying. It's not literal. I mean, it's figurative. Land of milk and honey. Not that there's all these rivers and lakes that flow with milk and honey. I wish. Money grows on trees. All we do is wake up in the morning, we go climb a tree, and we start blocking those dollars. America is a land of milk and honey. So this one is both embarrassing and awkward. All right. So I go over to my wife then girlfriend's apartment, and so we're hanging out, and I love this girl, and I go use the bathroom, and the worst thing that would ever happen to someone that you really like happened then. And wait, so let me give you a background before I tell you that story. So it was kind of a norm back home that before you went and did your deed, you kind of had to be prepared with your own toilet paper, because there wasn't toilet paper in every public restroom, and so you kind of had to be prepared. Or if you were like in downtown and you didn't have toilet paper and you wanted to use the bathroom, you would pay a fee and they would give you toilet paper and a clean bathroom to use. So come back here, and there's toilet paper everywhere. There's toilet paper in public restrooms. Well, unless we're talking about the COVID time when everybody went crazy and there was no toilet paper. But usually, in these toilet paper, I mean, it's like toilet paper is not the first thing you think about when you go into a restroom. And so, I'm smack dab in the middle of doing my business in my girlfriend's apartment. And I'm like, I'm done. And so I reach over on my right to pull the toilet paper. And then, alas, there is no toilet paper. And I'm like, whoa. So I'm thinking, well, let me flash and then maybe I can call her through the door for her to bring me toilet paper. And then I go try and flush the restroom, and I try to jiggle the knob, and it's not working. There's no toilet paper, and the toilet is not flashing. I know. And I'm not going to finish that story because I'm going to leave room for your imagination how that story ended. There's no toilet paper, and the toilet is not flashing. And now it's etched in the back of my head. I have to think about toilet paper every time I go use the bathroom, whether I'm in Nairobi or I'm in the US. Yeah. Thank you for watching my video. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for checking that notification bell. Come back for more. And I love you, but God loves you even more. Thank you, and see you next time. God bless.